Welcome back to another episode of A Record of My Father. Here we are today, and I'm sitting in my apartment, and you're sitting in a room over there. But I think we're
Yep.
going to talk about was it your first apartment? Or your
Oh,
first
yeah. First time. Well, I mean, technically, the first time I moved out was into the back seat of my car, but that's not exactly
it's an apartment in a way.
the rent was really low.
It's an apartment, right?
But I had to, I mean, the problem is I remember I was at Baby Apartments and I was sleeping in the front seat of the car and it was wintertime and it was cold. So you had to cut the car on like every 2 or 3 hours to warm up. And that made it not good. And I had like a quarter tank of gas and I had to go to school because I was like in 11th grade then. And I remember I was like, oh, this is not the way to be this. No, no, no. Anyway, that's the technically the first time I moved out. The first time I really moved out, I would say I was older than a lot of people. I graduated college and I graduated late, so I was like 25, 24, 25. Uh, I went to our favorite school, Nova, for what, 7 years, 6 years, at like
Oh, I didn't
3,000.
realize you went to community college. Nah, I did know that. I did.
I went to community college and then I went to Old Dominion University. And Old Dominion University, I finally got to the point where I needed to finish. And so that's when I was like, and I fired some guy that was older and it was like an epiphany. I think I've talked about this before that made
You did. You did.
propelled me to move into school. But anyway, I moved out. I had a roommate. We moved to Larchmont Village Apartments. It was $500 a month for a 2 bedroom. And so
Bring those prices back.
my rent was 250 and I was working on Fridays and Saturdays at Garrett's. I work Fridays or Saturdays, and I get $50 a night cash to work there. So I'd work 8 to closing, either Saturday, usually Friday, because Saturday was fight night. You don't want to fight. You don't want to be at a bar on a Saturday night because then people drink all day and then they get there and then your mama, and you can't. Whereas when there's no fight night, like it's a lot easier.
Is it
And,
just
and
people fighting, or was there a fight that would be on TV? Is that what you're
No,
saying?
no, there would usually people would get so drunk and they'd start a fight, and it was always over a woman for some reason.
Why specifically there?
Uh,
Just drew
well, no,
that
I
drew
think they
that
fought.
crowd.
I think every bar that
Yeah.
was a college bar, because it was Georgetown, so it was like 30th and M in Georgetown. All the guys would come out. You'd have Senate Pages there. You'd have the Marines come in from Quantico on Saturday,
You do have
and
the
so
school right there. That makes
there
sense.
was
Yeah.
and we also had the Harley Davidson crowd that would come in and park, and they'd park on the sidewalk and get mad if somebody breathed on their bike, and then there was a huge contingent of kids, like young kids, that came out after the closing of the bars to roll people. So it was a really good time of the year, good
Well,
time for
Georgetown was also different at that time, and I think that's why they
yeah,
removed all the bars from Georgetown, right?
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, it was really weird. They didn't want to have Metro and they didn't want all this kind of stuff, but then they got Metro, and then but when I was there, they didn't have Metro, and
They still
if you
don't.
want, that was a great place to rob
Foggy Bottom
people.
is the closest. Foggy Bottom is still a mile,
Well,
if
think
that.
about
It
it. I
might
mean, you're
be
walking down the
point
street,
0.6.
you're 12 years old. It's 2:30 in the morning on Saturday night, and Zach walks by, and he's just absolutely hammered. Me and my 6 buddies are just going to take your stuff, and there ain't nothing you can do
Sounds
about
like
it.
a Charles Dickens novel.
Oh, it's like, and you would watch it happen, and you'd look at people, and you'd be like, "What are you doing?" And I saw some guy yell at the kids, "Mistake." Oh my God. They just wailed on him. And then I had this woman, another woman, they walking by and they all groped her. And she looks at me like I'm supposed to come outside of the bar and do something. I'm like, come in here, you know?
Some 9 or
Oh,
12, 14-year-olds.
oh yeah, they would have beat the hell out of me
Oh
in like
gosh.
2 seconds. No, you
Oh my.
never leave the bar. You never leave the bar. That's stupid.
That really makes you think about the one true question that I think everybody asks themselves is how many 14-year-olds do you think you could beat up at once? And I don't
Uh,
know. I don't
three.
know. Three? You think three?
Yeah.
I don't know. The kids are bigger now, though. I feel like they're much taller
No, I
now.
think I think the
I'm
thing
seeing
is that
15-year-olds that are like 28.
I think it
I
would
don't
really
even know what's
be
going
inner
on.
city. Are they inner city or are they is it
Oh, demographic and or I guess where you're
well the
from,
thing
yeah.
is that
Those who, yeah.
a conversation came up about you today, and it's about whether or not when you get in an argument, what do you do?
Yeah.
Do you push the person or you punch them in the face?
Hmm. Or
And
do
I
you
used to
ignore
always
it?
tell you to just punch them in the face.
Yeah.
And so,
It's not really great advice.
well, I think it is, and the reason is that you you don't lose. I mean, you don't want to be hit second.
Well, if
You
it's
want to be,
going to become that, but it never really
yeah.
needs to
Well, that's the whole
devolve
thing.
into that, I think
Can
is what
you?
I was
Well,
getting at.
when you're six
Yeah.
years old, you need to beat up a lot of kids. I think that's just
It kind of
important.
does make you stronger, though. I will say
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
It puts a
Learn how to
little,
punch people in the nose because
yeah.
they cry right away. You know.
Great, great advice.
And this is
But
how I was saying that today, and they
yeah,
were just shaking their heads, going like, "I don't know if that's a good idea for a 7-year-old."
yeah,
And I'm like,
really,
"Well,
really
yeah.
taught me great lessons.
Well,
But
I
you
saw
know what's
you.
funny though? Larchmont Village, what you were just
Yeah,
mentioning, is the
yeah,
exact. It's weird. It's really, really weird
right.
because Larchmont Village is the adjacent neighborhood to where I live now, which I think is the craziest.
Really?
Yeah, I live
We
about th 3 blocks. Well, this area is technically Larchmont Village or Koreatown is where I live, which is
right?
bizarre. That's a little weird.
I bet your
That's
rent ain't $500 a month.
it certainly isn't. It's about double that. But
I
yeah.
remember we were talking about cable, and it was like $30, and we're like a month, and we're like,
Mhm.
that's crazy. And now what is it, like 150? It's like nuts. I
Yeah,
mean,
I
everything's
don't even
just
know who does
crazy.
cable anymore.
And
I
you
don't
look at
really I
like
don't we don't have cable.
so your rent for a 2 bedroom out there would be what, 3,000?
This is a 3 bedroom. But
Okay.
a two would be it depends where it really, really comes down to where it is.
Yeah.
Because if you're moving downtown and if it's a penthouse, it's different. But the area that I'm in, 3 bedroom is 1100 per person
So
here.
it's 3,300.
Yeah,
So a two
for,
bedroom would
for a
be
three
about
bedroom.
like three.
Depending on if you can find one and also it's kind of like the Wild West out here when it
So
comes to
so I'm so,
realty.
I mean, the reason I'm doing this is so in essence, rent has gone up sixfold
Yeah. Yeah.
from mine to yours. And when I started, I was making $15,000 a year. Now people, when they start, they make 50, 60, somewhere in there,
I would say so.
around.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's 3 to 4x what I make.
Well,
And yet
actually, is it really 50 right out of college? Because I think nurses are the
it depends.
highest paid,
Yeah.
and that's the guaranteed $50,000 a year if you become a nurse.
I
And
think
that's
teachers are in
why,
the 40s. So
yeah.
yeah.
Then sales technically, or not technically, but usually starts lower because it has a compensation as well or a
Yeah.
added
Variable
bonus.
comp.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, it's just like it's crazy when you think about it. I remember that place, Kings Park, King Street. We were right across the street from the first Five Guys. We used to go down there Sunday morning, and there was a line. The Five Guys opened at 11 o'clock in the morning on Sundays, and it was the nastiest group of people that I was part of ever, because everybody was just hungover and their mouths were like open. You know how when you see people the next day after they've had too much to drink and they don't shave and they haven't showered and they kind of smell a little bit, and guys, women, everybody, they brought dogs, nobody cared, and you just were in line and you were there for Five Guys cheeseburger, because cheeseburger was what you need when you get out of bed. You stay up and you drink until 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, and you get up the next morning, go down the hill, walk across the street, go in there, get a 7,000 ounce Coke, a small bag of fries.
I remember when they were still doing that, when they would just fill the
Yeah,
bag up and it was small. And now
yeah.
it's what, $40 for a
It's not.
burger?
When you and I went there, we got about one bag of fries, small. We
Small.
got two single burgers, the little ones.
Do we get drinks?
We got
Because
and
the
we
drinks is
got
where
two
they'll get you.
drinks,
It's 550
and we got
for
two
like
drinks, and
yeah.
that was $40.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And you're just like, holy crap, that's not,
Fun.
you know,
It used to
that's
be
not.
affordable. It used to be.
Yeah. Well, it's like 4.99 for a burger, and now it's 12.
And you don't even get the peanuts either.
Yeah. No, you don't get to eat peanuts and throw shit on the floor like we used to
I remember
back
we
in
were
the.
doing that. Yeah, that was great.
Yeah,
You could do
that was a
that.
lot of fun. I used to go there a lot when I was in Wheelie, when I was at the office in Wheelie. But as far as like places,
Uh,
Larchmont Village was big. It had a good sized living room. Is as big as this area here.
mm.
It had one bathroom shared. It had 2 bedrooms. Each bedroom had a big closet. a double wide, so to speak. And there was a dining area, and then there was a closet there. I mean, it was pretty good, I thought,
No,
and for the money, it was good. And I had a reasonably good roommate for the first year and a half. I mean, it always would go south when the people you're living with bring their girlfriend in.
nightmare. That always becomes a
Yeah.
nightmare
Yeah.
every
And it
time.
was just like, and then they were planning to move out and they weren't telling me. And then they snuck out on a Friday. And I mean, it was just, I come home and the lights are off. He cut the power because the power was in his name, phone was in my name.
Oh, great.
And I'm like, what the,
Mhm. Did
you
you
know?
move out of there after he moved out, or did you
I
stay
moved,
around?
I went in and I told, because the lease was coming up in 2 months. And I told him, and we had a month. And I said that he just ran out. And they're like, yeah, he said, and then they phrased it. That woman that he was with came down here and yelled at us
Huh.
and wanted the deposit. And no,
Why?
so I ended up getting the whole deposit and the interest because we lived there for 2 years. So
Oh,
I got all the
geez.
interest and the deposit on that
That's
back to
nice.
me. And she said, well, we'll make sure you get it all. And then he has to see how to get it from you. And I'm like, cool.
Great. Well, she was
So that
lovely.
was,
That's
yeah.
great.
But I mean, it really got contentious at the end because,
Mhm.
when you're in a relationship with someone else and that person's telling you not to be nice to somebody else, you don't. I don't know whatever
Yeah.
happened. I don't know whatever happened to them. They moved out. They disappeared. That was kind of ugly. Uh, I mean, the other time I was gonna move in with people, but it was really weird. It was that time when I was living in the car and I was gonna rent a place, and I had about 3 grand in high school in 11th grade. A lot of people didn't have that kind of money, and so I was gonna rent a place, but I had two people that wanted to live there too. And it's like, this is really cool, 1 bedroom. I'm like, okay, well, where are you guys gonna stay? And they're like, no, no, no. So and so has a really cool bedroom set, and he would be in there, and you could just use it anytime you wanted. And I'm going like, you mean like at night? It
That's
would have been the
strange.
craziest thing if I'd have moved in there because they didn't have any money.
Yeah. Mm.
And I was like, well, we need a down payment. I said, well, everybody puts in a third. And it's like, well, but you got all the money, so you should put the down payment. And I was just like,
Uh,
this is already going south. And I said, I'll have to think about it. And which meant, no
no.
way.
Yeah.
No. But I lived
I
there. I
hear
mean, I think at school. I lived in places at school.
you. Hmm.
I rented a place. The wildest thing is going back to when I first started going to college in Norfolk. I would I would load up everything in a U-Haul, and it's a one-way U-Haul from Woodbridge, drive. I would get off work Friday, my last day, and get my check that afternoon. I would go and get a U-Haul, load it on Saturday, and drive to Norfolk. I would then, what was it? Then I would go to the housing office, which was open until 6. I would look at all the different places, and then I would go visit 2 or 3, and I pick one, and I tell them I want to move in Saturday.
You're talking
I mean
about the
Sunday.
beginning of the school year or what?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
it
yeah.
was like it was a flash mob for me. I mean, it was just so like get out of work, get in the car, load the car. You got to put your bed in it because I slept in my bed last night. I got to throw it in the back of a U-Haul and I got to take it down to Norfolk and I have to unload it tomorrow. I mean, so there's all this stuff that you got to do, and you try to load it all that night, because it's 3-hour ride, 2.5, something like that, depending upon how
Hmm.
fast. And then usually, I forgot how I got the car back. I don't remember. I think I would take a brother or uh, I think I took my girlfriend the first time I went down.
Hmm. Well, that's kind of what I've been thinking about. Is
Yeah.
I was thinking that if I moved out of here today, it would
Yeah.
take me maybe 30 minutes to move everything out. Because I
Yeah.
don't have that. My bed frame broke, so I don't even have a bed frame anymore. And I have this white table that this sits on with a TV. My clothes is the most amount.
Yeah.
And then the
Yeah.
small green couch in there. That's
Yeah.
all I got. And then dishes.
Yeah.
Very, very snappy. I could do it 30, 40 minutes easily.
Wow.
And I think that makes sense though. Because it's like,
Vagabond.
why would I own like all of this furniture when like maybe theoretically that you're gonna move in the next year or
Well,
two
you're like Edwin. Here it is, like 40 years later, and he still has his clothes in a box.
I'm a
You know?
simpleton. Yeah. No, I'm
Yeah.
I'm
Do
definitely
you have a
pretty
Do you
I'm
have a
easy.
dresser?
No, no dresser. Everything fits in the closets.
So you don't have a dresser. You don't. I mean, what I'm thinking is when I went to Norfolk, I had a bed, like not a queen, just not even a queen, a single or a double or whatever the heck it was. I had a desk,
Hmm.
like this desk, a chair because I needed a desk to work on. I didn't have then computers. No, didn't have them then. Bed, dresser, chair. That was it. And then
Yeah.
I brought some dishes, and people had their own. You had like two plates and two forks and some
Yeah.
underwear, and and then a bunch of clothes and all that stuff. But the furniture had to go in the back, and I always had I had a bicycle because I was more than a mile from school, and I would ride the bike every day. And that was the first year was horrible.
Oh God, I always forget I have a bicycle that's on the
Yeah,
and
yeah.
downstairs. Yeah, I always forget
Well, you
about that.
forget that it's like, and well, when it's raining, I mean, I would ride that bike every day. And I remember in December, from late
Hmm.
November till close of school, it
Yeah,
rained 20 days in a row. Oh my God.
that's
And I
brutal.
got to tell you, I mean, you go to class, 8 o'clock class, and it's November, and Norfolk is like 45 degrees, and rain is coming down at 7:45 in the morning. And there's just no way you can get warm. You go in, you're wet, you got wet feet, you're riding your bike. You don't have really good rain gear. You have crap. I mean, my mother at Christmas gave me rain gear. It never fucking rained again. It was so funny. And she said, "What do you want?" I said, "Anything that will keep the rain away." And she got me a full rain suit.
Oh
Got it for
wow.
my, and it never rained again.
Of course it didn't. But
Yeah,
if you
I mean,
didn't get the rain suit, it would have been pouring for the rest of the
right.
year.
But the bike thing was always fun, and and I stayed there, and that rent was 110 bucks a month.
Oh, that's nice.
110. Think about that.
I'm paying less here than I was at UVA, which is pretty shocking.
That's crazy.
I'm paying less here. But th that was also a studio. So there's
I
a difference
stayed
between that.
there. I was in the one house was 110, 115, and the other house was 130. And 130 was like a room that was big enough for, I had access to, we had two bathrooms there, two and a half baths is a full house. I lived in a house with two other people, and they were pretty good. They're easy to get along with. I mean, that's the whole thing is like, if you have a roommate that you don't see eye to eye with, it makes living horrible.
Oh, it's a nightmare. You're in your
You
room
know,
you're the whole time or you are out all the time.
yeah, you don't want to be near them. You're just
You
like, I
never,
I
yeah.
can't. And I'm loud, I'm outgoing, and I have to find people that matches to. Otherwise, because unfortunately, I'm not going to change. And I'm not going to be Mr. Quiet because you like quiet. I'm not going to, and I'm not going to do it intentionally. And you may think that I would do something intentionally, but it's not. It's just normal for me to be that way,
Mm.
So it's like you got to make sure that when you go out and you move somewhere that your first place and stuff like that, especially if you're sharing. And nowadays everybody's got to share because there's no freaking money.
No.
I mean, rents are so high, and you see, I think the weirdest thing I saw is that, okay, interest rates are rising, real estate prices are stagnating, and what happens? Like Blackstone and a couple of the very large funds comes in and buys huge amounts of real estate. And you're like, why are they buying rental properties? And then you start to realize the theory of supply and demand that there's uh, the US in the last decade has produced fewer homes than it's ever produced before.
Mm.
They're building less and less homes. Well, what happens is we're getting more and more people that need living space. So what happens when you have a smaller and smaller number of homes to rent to a much larger pool of people? Rent prices go up, supply and demand, price elasticity. So what they're doing is they're going in and they're buying buildings when buildings got cheap during COVID, and they took them and they made them into rentable apartments. And I mean, you think about the kind of cash that they're going to make because the rents are 3, 4, 5. I mean, everywhere you go, it's just people say it's absurd. You know, we're changing into a nation of renters as opposed to homeowners. I think in a lot of ways,
It's
because
gonna be
people can't
like
afford it.
Judge Dredd where you see those giant cube buildings.
Yeah.
The giant cube buildings and they're like about 40 stories high. And they're
Well, I
like
mean,
mega malls of renters and
Tokyo
everybody
is already
lives in their
that
little
way.
cube. Everybody
Well,
has
you
a little
see,
cube.
New York, 250 square feet.
And
That's a
how much?
micro. I mean, your apartment, your room there, how big?
I have no idea.
10 by 10? How many feet?
I'm gonna guess. That sounds about right.
Probably 10 by,
Yeah.
it's probably 10 by 13 or 12 by 13.
This including the closet space. The closet, there's got a lot of closet space in here.
Yeah. And if you figure that out, that's about 150, 200 square feet.
Yeah. Yeah, probably.
So another 50 square feet. Think about that. And 50 square feet
And that would be
is,
it. That's crazy.
that's like
Because what was my last one? My
six
last one was
times
like
seven. That's
650.
eight. Yeah, that's like 8 feet by 6 feet.
Yeah, I don't know how people would do that. And
That would
you
be your bathroom. And
yeah,
then
well, you have
no
a
fucking
shared
kitchen.
bathroom a lot of the times in those New York ones. You have a shared one and it's on your floor. And what am I in a dorm room? Like,
I
why would I
couldn't do
move
that.
to a place to where I'm 25 years old sharing a bathroom with
We
other
had
people? It's like, and you're sharing it with like 20 people.
had one of the people I used to work with, and he was an up and comer who really brilliant, Harvard Law, and he worked at one of the top law firms in the world, and then came to work for us because he didn't want to, but he needed to pay off his student loans, which are astronomical, because to get a degree at Harvard, a law degree was like 250, three hundred
Oh, I
thousand.
believe it. Yeah.
But you got to pay that off. It's 8% interest, so every month it's a huge nut. You know,
Mhm.
so he moved into an apartment where there was a shared bathroom, and I was
Mm,
just like, how do you?
that's crazy.
I don't know how you do that. I mean, I could see it if you're single for a while, but I got to tell you, if you're in the shower and you leave something behind, I just think that's, to me, would be, I
Yeah.
couldn't, you know, that just no.
No,
I can't get there.
no, you can't.
It's because the thing is like, what do I do? What am I going to say? You spit in the shower, or you cleared your throat and left it behind, and all. I mean, it's just, I mean, it's hard enough if you love the person and you live with them to pick up their filth, but somebody that you don't know, it's less.
That's
It
very
would be,
different. That's a
yeah, it'd be.
very
Oh
different
my
thing.
God,
And
it'd
then
be
you know
bad.
that one person's always going to be cleaning more than the other person.
Right.
Yeah.
You've got that person. Well, I mean, we did some really good rules that my first and my second place, we were
Hmm.
very good about dishes. We had a rotating schedule, and it was every day do the dishes by midnight. If you don't do the dishes, you got to buy a case of beer, and it worked out really well, except during uh uh finals.
Do you have a
And then
dishwasher?
no, we had
Ah, okay.
you would go in and wash them in the sink and
That's the
all this.
problem, man.
Well, usually what happens, like, how many dishes get used in a day? A
So many.
frying pan or two.
So
Uh,
many.
well, I mean, if everybody eats there, but people come in and they use a plate and they use this, so there might be 8 or 10 plates and
Hmm.
6 glasses. A lot of people use their glass over and over, so it's not really that much. And a pot or two that people use to cook dinner in, and then you wipe down the stove and you wipe down a little area, you put
Well,
it
we
all,
have
it's
a
all
full
done.
dishwasher every day.
Yeah. Well, there's three of
Every
you
day.
too. Well, that's the amount of dishes you would do by hand.
That man, that's a lot of time too out of your day if you think about it.
Well,
That's a
but then it was like,
crazy.
okay, if you didn't, you had to buy a case of beer, and beer of all things, Meisterbrow, no, Milwaukee's Best, 6.99 a case at 7-Eleven. I mean, think about that, 6.99 a case.
Mm,
So we would,
that's crazy.
so during finals week, you would see like Vito, that's not his real name, but that was his nickname. He would go to 7-Eleven and he would get 2 cases of Milwaukee's Best and come in and go. I don't do them the next 2 times. So that meant there's 4 of us, right? So you got to do them at least once a week, sometimes twice a week. You buy two, you don't have to do them for 8, 10, 12 days,
Sounds
right?
like Animal House.
Oh my God, it was. And so, but during finals, everybody, it would be like spin the bottle until nobody wanted to buy any more beer.
Hmm.
Well, I'm going home tomorrow, man. Well, then you got to do the dishes before you go. Oh man, or buy a case of beer and leave. Oh man. how many cases of beer you got? Well, we got 8 so far. So, you
I was
know,
about to say, I'm like, they would definitely fall into
well, we would all get a lot
kind
of beer
of.
during then, and then, and everybody had beer, and it was great because the thing is like you come into a trashed kitchen because people in a day trash kitchen,
In an hour.
bugs and all that kind of stuff, and but if you clean
Yeah.
it, but if everybody does what they're supposed to do every single day, it's clean. And most of the time it was clean. People would, except for a 1 week period where people would, have all of this stuff. So it's like little simple rules made life so much easier. You know what I
Hmm.
mean?
I
That's what I
believe it.
thought. And I really liked that. I thought that was really cool. Uh, some of were a little crazy, overly. I lived with different people that had different ideas on how your house should be heated or cooled, or whether or not you should have cable, and who should pay for it. And I don't want to watch it. And yeah, but you sit down and watch it when we watch it. So we either got to all agree to combination or not. And then you got the guy who wants the Playboy channel, and you're like, no, just look at the squiggly lines, dude. Because he was the youngest and he was the most irresponsible. And it's like, no, man, you won't pay. You won't, because his parents paid his rent and everything. So,
Uh,
but I mean, he was the only one that was of age. All the rest of us were old fucks. It was really funny.
Old bucks.
Yeah, I was 23 or 24 23 when I went there. When it's then, Doggy was like 30, 31, 32, 33,
Was he getting
34.
his graduate degree or was he getting his undergrad?
Undergrad.
Oh,
Undergrad.
undergrad
He was
still.
just
Okay.
finishing, yeah, because he did all the sawmill work. He did all sorts of things
What
like
was he
that.
doing before? That's my question.
Uh, he did,
You said
I think,
sawmill?
yeah, they had his brother owned a sawmill, and they worked in a sawmill for years. And he did a lot of different things. But he was just he has had a knack for engineer, and he did the engineering thing. And he's an electrical engineer. So, and that was the place to get it. Me, I didn't have any idea I wanted to be a writer. And then the weirdest advice I ever took was from the old man when he told me about the journalists. He said, yeah, there's 7,000 journalist jobs that are created every year, and there's 64,000 people with degrees in journalism. So, if you're 7 times better than anybody else, then you should definitely become a journalist. But if you don't think that you are, you might want to consider something different. And I'm like, God.
I'm shocked that he actually gave you good advice for once.
It's the
That's
only
kind of
thing I can
crazy.
ever remember, because I don't think it was exactly that succinct and that clear. It was more like,
There's probably some screaming in there.
well, the thing is I wrote letters to the local Potomac News, and they published them, and they contacted him and said, okay, will this guy do stuff for us? Will he
Wait, do you
write?
still have those that were published?
I might still have the one,
We should find
from
that.
a long
I bet. Well, I bet
ago.
they have an archives.
Well,
Write that down. That'd be cool. That'd be
it was
cool to
about a, it
find
was
those.
about a lady, right around the time, you may not know Janet Cook.
No, no clue.
You ever heard it? It was called, and what she did in the Washington Post is she wrote a story about an 8-year-old heroin addict or crackhead or something like that, and how horrible it was. And she
Mhm.
got a Pulitzer,
Oh,
whatever you
I
call it.
remember this story that you
And then
told
it
me
came
about.
back that she just made the shit up. And then I'm reading in the paper about the horror of drugs in our local high schools. And there's this person that's like 22 or 23 that writes this article. And I'm like 17 or 16. And he writes an article about shooting up LSD.
Mhm.
And I was just like,
Yeah.
and something about snorting weed. And I was just like, this is the problem. This is the reason you don't get to speak. That you say all these falsehoods. You talk about that smoking marijuana leads to heroin, when we all know that that's not true. I mean, it's more that you can look at the Jamaican studies. Nixon made all these sites, and they were all in. And I actually did the research, and I said he was wrong. He was wrong again and again and again. No, most people that do heroin are alcoholics. They're not. They never smoke weed, or if they did smoke weed, it's only because they were buying heroin. And it's a different mindset.
Well,
All of them,
everybody that breathes air also drinks water. You know that?
all of them. It's not causal. It's, what do you call it when it's not causal? It doesn't. If you smoke weed, you're no more apt to be
It's
a
not a
heroin
gateway
addict.
drug, is what you're trying to
Right,
say. Yeah.
exactly. But they're trying to make it a gateway drug, and they're trying to do that again.
Well, they were trying to do that when I was in high school as well.
Yeah, and you're
And
just
the
like,
guy
you
was
guys are
just
so
blaming
full of
his
shit.
mom the whole time. I remember that. Like the
Well,
guy
that's his
that spoke
mom.
at our school was blaming our mom. And I'm like, if you actually were a recovered addict, you would know that the number one rule is that you blame nobody except yourself. for your own decisions.
Right.
And he was blaming his mom. He's like, it's
Exactly.
all her fault. And I'm like, you're like 72 years old and you're still blaming your mom for wasting 20 years of your own life, which you did to yourself. And I
Right.
thought, and I was like, they hired out these people to come into our school. And I don't know, it was
See, they did the same thing at our high school. And I saw this written in the paper and it moved me so much that I wrote like a big thing. And they called me to say, you're really this guy. And I'm like, yeah, you're a 16-year-old kid. Yeah. And you wrote this? Yeah. And then do you want a job? And I didn't. And the thing is it didn't pay dick. And I was a person that, to write an article and to make like $50 or no, $25 to write an article, I couldn't just whip it out in 5 seconds. It took me time to produce that. I researched Jamaica. The study that Nixon cited, which was flawed, and saying that the reason we have stiff drug sentences for marijuana users is because it's a gateway drug, when in fact it wasn't. And thing after thing after thing, And this person who wrote this article wrote this big op-ed saying how horrible marijuana was in the schools and how it was leading to LSD, which I was like, this is none of this is. I mean, you're putting this out as though it's some study when it's incorrect. You don't
exactly.
cite, and I pointed that out. I said, you don't cite any studies. You don't cite anything that proves what you say that's other more than silly conjecture. And this is what drives kids away from parents. This is what drives us away from you. This is the reason we don't believe you, because you don't speak the truth. Speak the truth. We will listen if you speak the truth. Tell us that it's not a gateway drug, but you're lazy as shit the next day. I mean, what is it? It's
Silly conjecture is something that's really come back to the forefront of news as well in the
fear.
past
They want to
two
fear
years.
everybody's to fear.
But we've always been afraid of something since McCarthyism. I think that,
Yeah,
like if you look at 9/11, after 9/11, it was immediately falling
that
into
was stupid.
Islamophobia. I mean, and before that, it was the
We spent a
communists, and
trillion
before
dollars
that, it
and
was
and
yeah.
what do we have? Or 2 trillion or whatever on that.
Do you think we found the
Trillion on the
weapons of mass
wars.
destruction yet? Do you think we did that? Do you think we
No,
did that
well,
after
some people
25
will
years in a
argue that
different
we
country?
did, but we didn't. So,
No, we
you
did.
know.
I don't even know when I saw that headline that we actually
Well,
found
that's
them.
the people that say that are people like Hannity, or people that are on the
Uh,
they say that, oh yeah, it was proven. And you're like, where? And then
mhm.
it dribbles off. Well, they actually found them. And they're like, no, they didn't.
You know what I want to do? I want to go back and read Kissinger's. I think it was his autobiography, because he
Really?
had a really good autobiography about how he was just a warmongering piece of garbage.
Oh, he
And
is.
it'd be
Yeah.
really interesting to see his influence on American government, because I think that was really a strong
Well,
I don't know, adoption of what happened after McCarthyism was when
he
he was
brought
existed.
Israel to the front of politics and to the control and the highest powers. He also was instrumental in Pinochet. He was instrumental in Iran.
Pinochet is
Uh,
what yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I know very
Iran. He
little
was he
about.
was he was very key in Iran. He was also a spokesman to George Bush for Iraq, uh, uh, and Afghanistan. I mean, every single fuck up we've ever had, that dude's nose has been in it, and no one says anything about
And
responsibility
him and
except,
him were hand in hand with Dick Cheney as well.
yeah,
And
yeah.
when
Well,
I
because
think
it's
a large
money.
part of why Halliburton is extended or risen 300%
It's
from
money.
the time that we went into Iraq until what was it?
Yeah,
2012 is when, yeah, it was crazy in
it's
that
money.
little span of
It's all
time.
about sad.
Oh, it's extremely sad, and
What do you call it? The
it's only going to get worse.
military industrial
The
complex.
backbone of this country, yeah. No, it's
Well, see,
crazy.
I think that we can change that. We start to look around and you look at all the roads and how traffic is everywhere. That's Biden's fault, because the infrastructure bill.
Sleepy Joe. That's what you're talking.
Sleepy Joe, yeah. Well, it ought to be Sleepy
Sleepy.
Donnie. He's the one that's falling asleep, and
Who
he's the
is?
one that doesn't know his doctor. And he's the one that, I mean, it's weird that what you see is that if you listen closely to each party, the louder they scream about something, the louder they are guilty of it.
It's always more reflective. Oh yeah.
Right.
Well, it's like
Right.
anybody. It's like the biggest homophobic people in the world are the actually people that are the most
Yeah, they're the closet.
yeah, they're the most
They're all in the
closeted, yeah.
closet. Yeah. I'm not a yeah. Isn't that so true?
Yeah, I mean,
Wow.
that's what I've always seen every time in my
It
life.
is. It runs that way.
It's a
It's
fact.
very, very sad. But
Anybody
anyway,
that's hypercritical is insecure themselves.
what your first apartment,
Oh, we
Which
only got about 3 minutes left here, but I'll tell you real quick. My first apartment was with Grant, right? The UVA. That was
yeah.
yeah, that was the first one at Brandmark. And that was
Hmm.
pretty it was a nice place for and every single unit had a balcony and people would actually climb down and up the balconies because it was COVID and they were bored and everybody was always in a drunken stupor about 24 hours a day. And they
Yeah.
would climb from like 6-story building down like the balconies. I'm like,
Well,
that's
you had the guy that didn't want to climb and could fly.
oh yeah, we did have the guy that jumped off the balcony that almost
Yeah.
died, a 4-story
Yeah.
balcony on the concrete. But he
Yeah.
lived, and now he's in the commerce school at UVA. I think he graduated this year
Excellent.
or last year. Yeah, he's
That's
doing
a
much
really good
better.
way to bounce back.
And on that note, that's a great way to leave it. Well, we appreciate you guys so much. Thank you for listening as always. And we're thinking about getting a PR guy, right? We're thinking about doing that.
Yeah,
And
and I got to say, Joe, thank you for the nomination for the Webby.
yes, thank you. We
Yeah, we
greatly
appreciate
appreciate
that.
it.
We
And
would like you to actually say it, but that would be good.
one day.
One day
But
I'll just keep doing that until
just be provocative.
hopefully he
It's
has a joy. Hopefully he has a good sense of humor. Because if he ever hears any of this, it'll be like, "Who are you? You
who is
bag of
this?
crap! I will beat you up with my kung fu jujitsu stuff." And I'm like, "Okay, whatever."
Good old jujitsu. All right. I'll talk to you guys later and we'll see you next week.
Party on.